Hello, welcome to episode 258 of the Epic Film Challenge 2, in conjunction with Asian Cinema Season 2, from 1988, the landmark anime classic Akira, directed by Katsuhiro Otomo. This is a big one, and a source of shame for me, I think. I covered this film in the original Epic Film Challenge back in 2011-2012. I bought the Blu-ray. It's a very nice steelbook, and to this day is a very nice steelbook. And I watched the film, and I reviewed it. And I realize now, I didn't really finish that film. I must have fallen asleep like an hour into it, and just decided to do the review anyway, which is absolutely, I'm going to say it, disgusting. I can't believe I did that, because I was watching the second hour of this 2+ hour movie thinking, I've never seen this before. Why did I think I'd seen this before? Clearly, I just had not watched the last hour of the film and had done the review anyway. For shame, Luke, for shame. So I've seen it now, and I've spent the last 5 or 6 years trying to convince Connie to watch it so that we could do this video together, and she just is not having it. She's just not having it at all. I'm sure she'd really enjoy it, but nope. So, it's one of those things I would have liked to have shared with her, but I watched it solo, and wow. Wow, Bob, wow. How many times can I say wow in this video? I don't even know where to start with this film. It's kind of interesting, actually, that the film takes place in Neo Tokyo, the year 2019. The year before they're preparing for the Olympics to arrive in Tokyo. And that's exactly where we are right now. We're in 2019, and Tokyo is no doubt deep into preparation for the 2020 Olympics, which will be taking place in Tokyo. So they kind of predicted the future there very weirdly and strangely. I wonder if that was part of the Tokyo kind of, city board's mission statement, we need to get the Akira date in, guys. If we're going to have it any year, it needs to tie in with Akira. I don't know. Probably not. But it's a very funny kind of coincidence. And the film opens with, I believe it's in 1988 or 1987, and you just see Tokyo, and it's this incredible sequence where this nuclear bomb just goes off, and it's this silence, and the cloud just opens, and the lighting of it is terrifying. And I absolutely am so certain that James Cameron has seen this film, and I'm absolutely so certain that he was influenced by this when injecting the kind of nuclear kind of apocalyptic fear into Terminator 2 Judgment Day, because the sequence in Terminator 2 when Sarah Connor has the dream and the bomb goes off, that, not so much the kind of her holding onto the kind of fence and the skin being blasted off her face, though I could very much see that being a scene from Akira, but just the feel of it. I don't know, the kind of the way that it's, I feel like they're very different scenes, but I could feel the same feeling. Maybe that's just the feeling I get when I see something related to a nuclear bomb going off, that kind of unreal fear of something that is so larger than life. I mean, it's just so unsettling. Nuclear power, nuclear kind of weaponry, to me, is just absolutely horrifying and scares the shit out of me. The fact that we've created something so unbelievably destructive is just unfathomable. It's why do we ever need that? And seeing it in the opening sequence of Akira is just, I don't know, it really was a powerful moment. It made me think of Terminator 2. And I really do think, knowing that Cameron is a fan of anime and manga in general, I think he probably has seen Akira, but I feel like he did inform at least the theme of that kind of apocalyptic fear that kind of colors the majority of Terminator 2 anyway. That aside, we then flash forward to Neo Tokyo, the rebuilt city in 2019, and we follow this kind of biker gang, these young teenagers who are kind of, they go to school, but the school is just, it's not run very well. There's graffiti everywhere. The kids don't really pay attention to what they're supposed to be doing. It's a really unruly kind of, it feels like martial law is almost at play, even though it isn't. There are police, and they actually do get kind of arrested in the opening scenes of the movie, but you feel like this is a world where they've rebuilt, and they've kind of made this opulent kind of metropolis out of Tokyo, and it looks fantastic and amazing and epic, but the actual kind of society element has not really been rebuilt in any way, shape, or form, and things are really crazy. It's like the Wild West. And the design of this city is unbelievable. I love it. I love looking at it. It's such a stunning film to look at. The way that these skyscrapers seem to go on forever, and the way that this film feels influenced by Blade Runner. It's like the same way I feel that Blade Runner is influenced by Metropolis, you know. These things link back to each other, and while I wouldn't say Akira looks like Blade Runner, I wouldn't say Blade Runner looks like Metropolis. The DNA of those movies forms this thread that takes us to Akira, and then Akira informs like things like, I think, Ghost in the Shell perhaps, and you know, other kind of, you know, I mean, these days any kind of, well, not any kind of, but a lot of futuristic sci-fi are so informed by Blade Runner, and in turn I think a little bit by Akira as well, and so it just keeps kind of linking on. But I feel like we stop there. The kind of the neon and the kind of larger than life skyscrapers, it hasn't really progressed beyond that point, and a lot of futurist sci-fi seems stuck in that kind of imagined world. And apparently this kind of cyberpunk aesthetic from Akira must have, I'm assuming, started with the manga, then informed a lot of things like Ghost in the Shell and other kind of Japanese cyberpunk stories and anime and things like that. As far as I'm aware, it's a very influential film in that regard, and I can really see that being the case, because this film is just visually groundbreaking. It's an absolutely stunning film to look at, I think, just based on the pure visual perspective. This is probably a film you should see before you die. Spoilers, like, this is just, I don't know. I love animated films, and this is one of the best I've seen, just in terms of the detail. You know, I mean, it isn't necessarily like gorgeous looking things like, you know, nice pastoral landscapes, but the grittiness of it, the lived in feel. You can almost taste the dirt in these streets, the grime, and the little alleyways and the doorways and the bits of graffiti, and everything feels lived in. It feels like a real world that you can reach out and touch. And then you have the larger than life skyscrapers that, you know, hint at this future that is really removed from humanity, in a sense, where it's just like we've built things so big and so large that we've lost sight of who we are and what we should be as a society and humanity, and all this crazy stuff is going on. And that's just like the visual look of the film and everything. I haven't even talked about the plot, but this biker gang at the beginning of the film, they get involved in a little bit of a chase with another biker gang, and we also cut to this mysterious character who's running around with a young boy who looks very old. His face is weathered and kind of wrinkled, and he seems very scared. He doesn't know what he's doing. And he ends up kind of on his own in the middle of the highway during this chase. And one of the biker gang kids, Tetsuo, he is riding towards the young kid, and there's a crash, there's an explosion, and something happens in that incident. And the young but old boy disappears. And now Tetsuo is going through some really weird stuff, and he goes back and forth to a lab. There's this other kind of organization that are very interested in him, because he seems to have these things built into him now after this incident, where they're trying to exploit the possibilities of his mind. And this is linked to that young boy who looked like an old man, who is one of these subjects, test subjects, who have been experimented on and have these strange telepathic and kind of psychic abilities. And Tetsuo begins to expand that kind of potential in his mind just exponentially as the film goes on. And at first you really feel for him, because and I mean, there's some amazing moments that really show you how his mind is changing. There's a scene where he manages to escape from the lab, and his friends catch up with him, and they're like, you know, what's going on? And he's just like, get away from me. And he falls down onto the road, and he looks down, and the road just opens up beneath him, and you see this view from underneath, and it goes completely silent, and then his guts fall out. And it's like, oh my god, what just happened? But then you see him like scrambling around trying to put his guts back into his body, and there's nothing there. It's all in his head. He's having these extreme hallucinations, and I have to really give credit to the sound design, the sound mixing, whatever you want to call it, in Akira, because the use of silence is absolutely incredible. The use of silence here is unbelievable. Like, I could talk about this film, and I could sit here making this review, talking about this film, saying, oh, this film is incredible, this film's great, the visuals are really great, the music's really great. But if I was to just say, Akira, wow. And just pause like that. Now you start stopping and going, oh, what's going on there? right? If you were just listening to this video and kind of my words are washing over you, then suddenly I just stop talking. Then you're like, oh, hang on a minute. You kind of ears perk up a little bit and you think, what's going on here? That's the kind of method that is used in Akira, and it's always sparingly. It's never overused. It's always to elicit the perfect dramatic response from the audience, and it just nails and lands every single time. There's great uses of silence in the film that just heighten and exacerbate. I don't know if that's the right word to use, really, but it really just accentuates. That's the word I was looking for. Accentuates kind of the really wow moments, the kind of jaw-dropping, breathtaking moments in the film. They just get so more kind of acutely focused on when you drop the sound out entirely. Loved it. Oh my god. But Tetsuo, we just see this absolute spiral of this character who you root for and you want him to kind of get better and stuff, but he goes down this dark path. The power goes to his head, literally, and his power begins to grow and grow and grow, and he just transforms, and it's a frightening and kind of exhilarating character arc where he gains so much power, it seems like there is nothing he can't do. And what I loved about the film is that about an hour and 15 minutes in, we reach this kind of a scene that feels like it's staged to be the finale of the film. It's called the baby room. And we find all the three young children who aren't really young children anymore. They still have the appearance of a child, but they're very old in the face. And we learn kind of why that is at the very end of the film. I won't go into spoilers in that degree, but we get to the baby room, and this feels like the end game of Akira. And I'm looking at the timer on the Blu-ray thinking, what else is going to happen? Like, this feels like the end. And it feels like climax after climax, like finale after finale. They just keep rolling into each other, building into each other. There's about 3 big set pieces in the last 45 minutes that they're huge. You know, the scope and the ambition of this story and this film is just like almost unprecedented to me. It's such an epic. And I hear that they're going to do a live action version. I don't know how the hell they're going to manage that. It's going to be really interesting to see how they try, but I was so wowed by the film. Like, I keep come back to that word wow, but yeah, I don't feel like I have the mind to analyze this. I'm sure you could just dive into this film and write several volumes of, like, analyses and all sorts of different things that could be dug into that are clearly there. The themes are really rich, and the ideas are really, like I said, I guess I was kind of analyzing the way that the city looks great and kind of beautiful and extravagant, but kind of society just seems to be crumbling apart, underneath in the bottom, in the lower levels and stuff. And so they're kind of, and that's kind of like a class thing as well. There is definitely something to be said about class in the film, but there's a lot more to it than that as well. I'm not too well equipped to discuss and go into, especially on first viewing, which I thought was my second viewing. Turns out it was my legit first viewing. So, I feel like Akira is a film that could be, again, really, really dug into, but I don't have the knowledge of it yet. And I like that. I like that I don't. I like that there's more for me to scratch and dig into with this film in years to come, and it's definitely a film I'm going to go back to again and again and again. And it's really interesting because I see how divisive this film is, and I look at my friends on Letterboxd, and some people have it 5-star classic, other people 2.5, not impressed. And I can see that. It's a very thick film, it's a very dense film, there's a lot of characters, a lot of things going on, separate factions that all have their own agenda and everything. And our kind of main character is, in a sense, Tetsuo, but then we also have Kaneda, who is the kind of the guy you see on the posters, the red jacket with the pill on the back and that amazing red motorcycle, which is such a great piece of iconography that is so emblematic of Japanese, manga, anime. It's such a great kind of icon. It was used in the Ready Player One movie. People know the Akira motorbike, even if they haven't seen the film, and it's a cool as fuck motorbike. So it's fun to see that in motion. The way that motion is drawn and animated in this film is beautiful. There's another character called Kei, who kind of comes along for the ride. I liked her character. I almost would have liked to have seen more from her. But this feels like a film beyond character. I don't know, that seems like a way of excusing the fact that it isn't as solid or tight in kind of the scripting of the characters and everything like that. But this film is an experience. It is absolutely an experience, and for that it gets my highest marks, I think. At the end of the film, I'm just like, wow, the final shot was just like a trip, and I just can't wait to watch it again. It's a phenomenal film. It's an action classic. The way that those telepathic abilities are portrayed on screen is unbelievable. I've said this before, I will say it again and again. With animated films that deal with these larger-than-life concepts where a character will do something with their mind and can just pull out his hand and something will explode, you can do that in an animated film and you don't really blink an eye because it doesn't look any different from anything else in the film, right? In a normal film, to do something like that, you would use CGI, and you can tell that it's CGI no matter how good it is. You know that it's CGI, and there's something in the back of your head that kind of tells you that's not entirely real. In an animated film, it all looks the same. There is no discrepancy between, something exploding or a character just sat there eating a bowl of noodles. Like, they're both one and the same. And so stories like this are built to be told in animated form, I think, and it's just... the finale in the stadium at the end is just unbelievable. And it recontextualizes a lot of the stuff that you thought about the origin of this whole story, namely the nuclear explosion at the beginning of the film, some 30 years prior to the main setting of the story and time period of the story. You get, and I love how it all builds into this big kind of just everything's going on. It's like, what the hell is that? And it's like, oh no, and it's a brutal film as well. The violence, it is an adult movie. There's some really harsh things that go on in the film, and there's blood and guts, literally. There's nudity. It's not extreme. It's not really graphic, but it certainly isn't a kids movie in that sense either. And at the end, everything's big and it's loud and it's like, what the fuck is going on? This is nuts. And it's all big. And then we suddenly kind of go into this kind of weird space without spoiling anything. And we go into kind of the past of some of these characters and some flashbacks. And it paints the story of a number of these characters in a really quiet and beautiful way, I thought, to kind of tell those kind of quiet flashback moments in the midst of all this craziness, just to go, okay, here's all this stuff, here's all this action, now we're going to show you this and we're going to bring it down, and you're going to feel this moment because of where we've placed it in the story, and now we're going to continue. Like, oh my god, I love the pacing of the storytelling as well. The grandiose scale of everything is stuff. I really love that kind of big, broad canvas storytelling when it comes to action movies and adventure movies, and this has that, like, so big. And so, it might be a case that I'm really just being, like, wowed by the visuals and kind of the epic staging of this story, where these characters are, going on this big journey and not really looking at kind of the clearer picture, I suppose. But that's fine by me. I'm happy to sit there and be like, wow. Sometimes you just want a movie where you go, wow, at the end of it. My first reaction at the end was, holy fuck. And so maybe I revert to a teenager a little bit with this film, and I'm more than happy to kind of admit that. It's a knockout movie, and I'm sure there's much more I could go into with it, but there are great moments, and the characterization of Tetsuo is really what will bring me back to this film, to just see this person really disintegrate while being empowered with all of this kind of... there's a moment when the bikers go back to the bar that they used to kind of hang out at, and they find Tetsuo, and he's killed the barman. He's gone nuts, right? And they're trying to, like, reason with him, and he starts getting violent with them, but in a very kind of slow and kind of menacing way. And there's a shot that looks up to Tetsuo's face, and he slowly begins to smile, and it's like a Chucky doll expression, and it's scarier than all, like, 8 or 9 of those Chucky movies. Like, just that expression, the way it's animated, is, like, terrifying to me. It's like, this is someone drunk off more power than anyone could possibly imagine in the real world, and that is a very potent and powerful idea. And in a way, I see this almost as a quasi-horror movie. It's really grim in that sense, and you really root for his friends to pull him out of it, because it just seems like it's an impossible, insurmountable task to stop this kid who just has gone so far down the road, and it's just like the power is controlling him. And that's an exciting and exhilarating, as I've already said, and also kind of terrifying thought and idea expressed in a very beautiful and kind of horrible film. Yeah, I know, I love it. I love this film. Is it a film you should see before you die? I absolutely think it is. I think it's a brilliant, unique story. Well, maybe not so much a unique story, but a brilliant, unique film set with this story. I think we've seen stories before with people who get powers and kind of, it overtakes them, for sure. We've seen that many times, but I do think that there's a lot of influence that can be felt in films after Akira, like The Matrix, for sure. I mean, The Matrix, you can tell that. I mean, the footprint of anime and manga is all over The Matrix, but even stuff like, I would say, Interstellar. I don't know, and perhaps it's not as overt or simple as Christopher Nolan going, I want to do something like that moment in Akira. Probably not, but I feel like by osmosis, kind of the ideas that Otomo was projecting with his story, both in the manga and this anime film, have kind of just seeped into the consciousness of storytellers in the medium of filmmaking. I don't know, maybe that's just me with the tinfoil hat on, I don't know. But I feel like I see a lot of things that have come since Akira in Akira. But in the same way that I see things in Akira that came from Blade Runner and Metropolis and so on and so forth. Art begets art, right? So it's just the way it is. But the way that this whole thing is packaged, this 2-hour thrill ride, yeah, I mean, I'd be happy just looking at the visuals, but the fact that the story and the kind of the urgency of all the characters, they're all on it, they're all doing something, they're all really striving for something at pretty much every point in the film, and so it's always exciting, it's always like, the sense of kind of urgency and pacing is immediate, and I enjoy that in a story that is able to pull off those action beats with visual flair, which Akira really does. So I think I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for watching. Leave your thoughts down below on Akira if you have seen it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I know it's a very divisive film, but I think that no one can really argue that it's been and it is an influential film, and at least at the very base minimum, a visually stunning film. I don't think anyone can really argue that. And I'll be thinking about this for a while now, and it's definitely going to be one of those probably once a year movies for me, and could maybe even crack my top 100 films of all time. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't know if it has enough substance for that, but maybe I don't really need that sometimes. So anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.